years ago this Easter that I met the son I had given up for adoption 35 years before. I never expected to meet him. And when I think about it, I think that meeting him would be like the best moment of your whole life. And in a real way, I mean, it was the whole thing. I flew to Calgary. I walked into a hotel lobby and looked around and saw someone who I didn't think looked like him. And I was looking very cute myself. And then I went into the restaurant part and I only saw an old man in there. So I went back into the lobby and I looked across the lobby at this guy sitting there. And I said, "Are you Mark?" And he said, "Yeah." "Are you Marilyn?" And my heart started to beat. And he got up and I walked across the room and I tripped over a chair gracefully, which is, sort of the way I do things. And then we hugged awkwardly and sort of banged my glasses off my nose. And then we spent 24 hours together and we went to the mountains and we talked and we sat up all night one night in a bar and because it was the only place open and talked for hours and said things that we needed to say and asked questions and laughed and cried and then we had a long hug and then we took him to the airport. And everything had been great, but when I dropped him off at the airport, I got back in the car and I started to sob. And I sobbed like I have never sobbed in my whole life. And you would have thought that I would have been like, "Oh, that was so wonderful," but that wasn't what happened to me. And I sobbed all night and I sobbed all the next day and I could not stop. I came back to work on Monday and all I could do was weep and wail and mourn. I couldn't even stay at work. I mean, I took a whole month off. And I was really a very strange person. I would sit on my front porch and just be having a cup of tea, and then I would start to sob, and I would sob so hard that I would double over and just roll in a ball. There were days I laid on my back with my arms spread and cried to the sky and just cried and cried and cried. And I really thought I must be going nuts. Like this didn't seem like the appropriate response. But I have come to realize that when that traumatic event happened in my life, that I had a child alone as a kid and I gave this child up for adoption, I didn't have anyone who led me into grieving. I wasn't allowed to lament. I had to go on. I had to make up for being a bad girl. And I did a good job of making up for that. But when I met Mark, it was like that pool of sadness in me just had to be released. And honestly, I just sobbed. I didn't know why I was sobbing half the time, but it was so deep and so guttural. And I would go through the city, and if I saw someone else suffering, I would cry over them. And my lament became a lament that was very sort of universal. I was so aware of people's pain, and I was so aware of people's tragedy and the hurt in this world. And it was like something I'd never experienced before. But out of that, slowly and slowly came like this wonderful sense of peace with the world, wonderful sense of peace with things being wrong, realizing more and more what I had lost when I gave up Mark, but yet realizing that life was rich and beautiful. And I learned a lot about lament. I learned that lament is necessary for us to survive. I learned that lament is healing, that it takes us into a community, that it is a source of love, and that it ends up in hope.